Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Alberta emergency officials say the rain much of the province has received lately has been a big help to firefighters battling so many of the wildfires. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre explains why he's calling for a public inquiry into foreign interference. And seniors in Lethbridge are receiving some much-needed help when it comes to voting in the provincial election.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Alberta emergency officials say there's been a lot of progress in the fight against wildfires due to the efforts of the 2,500 firefighters, rain, and cooler temperatures. Several evacuated communities have announced re-entry plans this week, while others are preparing residents to return. Close to 7,000 people remain displaced from their homes as a number of fires continue to burn.
There are 65 wildfires in the forest protection area of Alberta. 17 of those are out of control. So far this year, we've responded to 521 wildfires, burning more than 1,031,000 hectares. The extreme rate of growth we saw on these wildfires earlier this month has now slowed. Over the past 2 days, firefighters have been able to make significant progress on wildfires on the landscape. They've continued to build and reinforce fire breaks near communities and work on extinguishing hot spots inside the perimeter of wildfires.
Firefighters from both Australia and New Zealand are expected to arrive over the next few days to help battle the wildfires, which continue in both central and northern Alberta. Steve Holmstrom is a man of God. He is also a guy who's very thankful that his home was spared in Drayton Valley during the wildfires. He says it was truly a miracle that his cabin was not destroyed.
What was the miracle to me was, even though this forest was mowed down, that cabin, all around it, I'll take you over there, that cabin never even got singed. The fire went right close, and then it just stopped. It went around the cabin and then totally burnt everything past it and kept going. My backhoe of mine totally destroyed. This is the trailer we kept our tools in. But this cabin, not even touched.
Wow. Make sure you catch the powerful interview with Drayton Valley resident Steve Holmstrom and myself coming up later in our broadcast. A fire ban across Saskatchewan has been lifted. The province's public safety agency says the decision comes after recent rainfall and cooler temperatures helped crews battle wildfires in the north. Some parks in the region, however, may keep a local ban as some communities continue to experience high fire risk. Many residents have been forced from their homes as 24 wildfires burn in the northern region, including 5 that are not yet contained. Members of the Lethbridge Fire and Emergency Services have scored a top grade for their work. The group attained the Emergency Medical Services Accreditation Certification from Accreditation Canada. Over 80 policies had to be reviewed and updated to meet the requirements, which are audited by 2 external surveyors. The process evaluates various aspects of operation efficiency, including clinical care, emergency response, vehicle equipment, and training. Christopher Fahey, Accreditation and Logistics Officer for the group, explained how the department rolls out their fire and EMS personnel.
It would be 14 ambulances, 2 either advanced care paramedics or primary care paramedics per unit, and across 4 different platoons. So it's quite a bit. And then, like you said, we are a fire EMS service, so all of our fire apparatus always have an ALS practitioner on that as well. So an advanced care paramedic, so they can do all the same skills as the ambulance as well.
That's great news. City staff said it's been 5 years since the LFES team last received this important certification. Well, we enjoyed more seasonal values across much of southwestern Alberta today, temperature-wise. Jeanette Roche is in now with an early peek at the forecast. Jeanette, it appears as though the much-needed rain we've been receiving may be sticking around a little while longer.
Yeah, a 30% chance of showers this evening, along with a 30% chance tomorrow, Hal, but it should all clear up by the weekend. Now, this evening, we are looking at an overnight low of 8 degrees, along with a 20K wind becoming light later on in the evening, and then into Friday, looking at a high of 21 degrees to accompany that rain. And then by Saturday and Sunday, we're looking at mainly cloudy skies, and I'll be back later in the show to give you all those details along with the national forecast. Hal?
Great. Thanks so much, Jeanette. Federal Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre says there really needs to be a public inquiry looking into foreign interference of our federal elections. Poilievre says there's really not a lot of credibility by David Johnston's report on foreign interference, since the former Governor General is such a close buddy of the Trudeau family.
You know, the Trudeau Foundation, David Johnston's old organization, well, Trudeau hires him to investigate the interference in the Trudeau Foundation. But David Johnston says, don't worry about that. I had someone look into it and make sure that I'm not in a conflict of interest. And what do you know? That someone is a judge who is also a member of the Trudeau Foundation. This is the tiny club of Trudeau insiders who get rich and powerful by making everyone else poorer and weaker. They're better off, everyone else is worse off. They protect themselves while no one in the government protects Canadians.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau defended the report from his special rapporteur, David Johnston. Some opposition parties rejected an offer to look at secret information that led to the report's findings.
First of all, they're not questioning his report. They're only questioning his integrity. I'd suggest that opposition leaders and indeed Canadians take a look at his report and understand the work that he's done in this. This is an eminent Canadian who has served in many capacities over decades, was appointed Governor General by Stephen Harper, and has done extraordinary work on an extremely serious issue. We have further offered to all opposition party leaders that they get the security clearance necessary to look at all the intelligence that went into forming the conclusions in that report.
Privacy authorities from Alberta, British Columbia, and Quebec are investigating OpenAI, the artificial intelligence company which operates ChatGPT. Now, the groups will look into a variety of things, including whether OpenAI obtained valid consent for the collection, use, and disclosure of personal information. The privacy authorities will also look into whether the company has respected its obligations with respect to openness, transparency, accuracy, and accountability. Officials say it's an open investigation, and more details will be released in a public report once the investigation is complete. Seniors who are faced with mobility issues won't have to leave the comfort of their own homes when voting in the provincial election. Voting polls have been put in place at all of the Green Acres Foundation sites across the city here in Lethbridge. They'll give residents the opportunity to vote without having to leave the site. An official with Green Acres, Donna Kozlovi, says it's important to have these types of supports available for our seniors living in the community so they can have a voice as well.
Some of them, it's a little bit more difficult for them. They might not drive, or just getting to a forum can be difficult. So we also try to arrange forums at all of the sites. We invited the candidates to come in and on specific dates so that the residents had an opportunity to hear the platforms and also ask the candidates specific questions.
Kozlovi says this is not the first time they brought in polling stations to the sites, and it certainly won't be the last either. The Alberta provincial election is slated for Monday, and be sure to watch Bridge City News for the results. The United Conservative Party is promising to prioritize the expansion of the Taxpayer Protection Act, and it's welcome news according to the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. The group says the act would be one of the strongest laws in North America to protect taxpayers. Chris Sims, the group's Alberta director, says even though it's a step in the right direction, carbon taxes, sadly, are not included in this legislation.
We're looking to the future. Someday, Trudeau's mandatory minimum federal carbon tax could be gone. That could be scrapped. Our fear is what's preventing that carbon tax from flying home to roost back here at home in Alberta. So what we are urging the UCP to do is to further expand the Taxpayer Protection Act to include a shield against a provincial carbon tax.
Sims adds the act means politicians will have to hold a referendum and ask Alberta taxpayers before taking any more money. The Chinese-Canadian Museum in Vancouver just received $5 million in federal funding ahead of its opening on July the 1st. International Trade Minister Mary Ng says the money will go toward the renewal of the museum's permanent space in Vancouver's Chinatown, along with supporting the facility's first exhibit. Federal Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino announced $12 million in funding over the next 5 years to tackle crime. The money will go towards countering organized crime in parts of Quebec, in particular, those areas which are hotspots for human trafficking and drug smuggling.
Akwesasne, like all other communities, at the same time have been confronting the challenges around crime. And I would point out that we have seen issues that involve the illegal flow of contraband, obviously organized criminal elements, and most recently the tragedy involving 8 lives lost around an ongoing investigation in human smuggling. I know that there may be questions about that. Our thoughts and our sympathies go out to the families at this very difficult time.
A warning preparedness meteorologist with the Canadian Hurricane Centre offered an update as to how many hurricanes may hit the Atlantic region this season. Bob Robichaud says it appears as though this year there will be a lot more storms than major hurricanes hitting the Maritimes. And that's according to stats from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, otherwise known as NOAA.
Looking at the predictions that were issued by NOAA in just a short time ago, they're calling for 12 to 17 named storms. 5 to 9 of those storms would make it to hurricane status, and then 1 to 4 of those hurricanes would make it on to major hurricane status.
You know, there's been a lot of talk in our province about coal mining in the eastern slopes of the Canadian Rockies. So many people want to see that region protected and its beauty as well. Lindsay Wallace is with the Alberta Wilderness Association, and she says her group's legacy policies, working with the government of Alberta, helped to really protect the area long ago.
Back in the 70s, they went to a bunch of landowners and the public and created a report about the eastern slopes. And we've heard a lot about the eastern slopes recently in terms of coal mining, and AWA was instrumental. They got the government to put in a policy back in the 70s to protect the eastern slopes. And so a lot of the protected areas that are there now, that's one of our legacies.
Make sure you catch the full interview with Lindsay Wallace from the Alberta Wilderness Association and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up later in our show. The Green and Yellow Group is partnering with GPS Container for their annual Polar Plunge next month. They're collecting donations, which will all be donated to Can't Praxis, an equine-assisted therapy for veterans and first responders who suffer from PTSD. The president of the group explains the importance behind hosting this type of initiative.
PTSD goes way further than just veterans. Veterans, my heart is personally with them, but it also first responders, nurses, doctors, police officers. It's really important, especially with groups like Can't Praxis. Steve Critchley has put together an arsenal of help, and they actually go in and work with them. I find it very important, to answer your question. They go in there and work with them from the ground in. They find the holes where it started, the roots of the problem, and on top of that, they work with horses at a ranch.
The group's Polar Plunge will take place on June the 24th. The Lethbridge Bulls are ready to hit the field for their home opener on Friday evening versus the Medicine Hat Mavericks. The Bulls won the Western Canadian Baseball League Championship in 2021, but didn't qualify for the playoffs last season. Video journalist Micah Quinn caught up with the coaches and players from the Bulls to talk about the excitement of a new year of baseball.
The Lethbridge Bulls took in batting practice and fielded a few ground balls at Spitz Stadium for the team's first practice of the season on Thursday afternoon. Staff with the Bulls highlighted what we can expect from the group in 2023.
Good quality baseball here. We got a lot of good local talent that's on the team this year, as well as a bunch of Americans mixed in, and yeah, I think we'll have a good squad this year.
I think it's exciting for the team. I think we've built a pretty good roster, both the strengths we had last year and built on some of the weaknesses that exposed themselves during the 2022 season. So I think we're excited to get on the field and see what we got.
Last year, the Bulls didn't make the playoffs, but the atmosphere around the clubhouse is one of hope for the upcoming season.
This year I'm just trying to stay healthy. I didn't get to end the last season the way I wanted to, but I'm excited to be back here and ready to stay the whole summer. I like all the guys here, and Can't wait to start tomorrow.
Staff from the team also told us they are looking for families to host 4 players who don't have a permanent place to stay during the season.
We are looking for billet families who have a spare room in their house that the player can sleep, shower, do his laundry. We do provide financial support for groceries. It's a total of $750 per player this year. There is also a discount at some local vendors for these billet families to help support the cost of having a player. Each billet family receives 2 season tickets per player that they're able to host, so they're able to join us for all of the games.
For a full list of the Lethbridge Bulls 2023 schedule, you can visit bullsbaseball.com. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
Looking forward to seeing some baseball at Spitz Stadium once again this year. Craig Conroy says he was pretty excited at being named the new general manager of the Calgary Flames. He says it's a dream come true for him. Conroy played in over 500 games for the Flames and has worked in Calgary's management ranks for the past 12 years. He was the team's assistant GM under former general manager Brad Treliving.
This is the dream job for me, and I might not say that in a couple months, but right now that's the way I feel. So I just I'm ready for this, to accept this next challenge and promise to our fans I'm going to do everything I can, to bring another Stanley Cup here. Did we underachieve last year? Yeah, that starts right at the top with us and all the way down, coaching staff and the players. We did underachieve. Do I think we were a playoff team last year? 100%. I was shocked that we didn't make it, and it's unacceptable.
And hopefully the Flames will make the playoffs next season. Well, it was another nice spring day in Lethbridge with light showers in parts of southwestern Alberta today, and we could see even more of the wet stuff again on Friday. A full look at the weather pictures on deck. We had lots of cloud cover and some light showers in parts of southwestern Alberta earlier today. Jeanette Rocher is now with a complete look at the forecast. Jeanette, not only are we receiving some of the much needed moisture, but also the firefighters are battling the wildfires further north of us.
Yeah, Hal, recent precipitation and cooler weather up north has certainly helped, and it continued to today as well, as they saw another 30% chance of showers in the areas of Fox Creek and Swan Hills. And that's the area where those evacuees are returning home now. As for here, though, same deal. We are looking at that 30% chance of showers this evening into Friday, and then a high of 21 degrees Friday and Saturday. Mainly cloudy skies. We're going to have a fairly overcast weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Sunday's high, though, 24 degrees, up to 27 degrees on Monday with mainly clear skies, 24 as well for Tuesday and Wednesday with a mix of sun and clouds. So I'd say we are well above our average high for this time of year, which is 20. We're reaching those almost mid-20s coming this next week. Average low for this time of year, 6 degrees, 29. That was our high temperature on this day back in 1983, and in 1955, guess what? It was the coldest. It was -1 on that day. 5:35, that's when the sun rose this morning. Sunset this evening at 9:22 p.m. We're looking at 15 hours and 47 minutes of daylight. We're still looking at lots of sunshine on the west coast for tomorrow. High of 23 degrees, 19 though by the water, mainly sunny skies, and up to 60k winds in that Wanda-Fuca Strait. So pretty windy there. 23 for a high in Vancouver, but inland 27, very high humidex there as well, up to 30 for that humidex. Mainly sunny skies. Lots of sunshine across Alberta tomorrow. Edmonton looking at 22 for a high, 20 for a high in Calgary as well. And both of those areas could see increased clouds throughout the day. So those two cities not getting the rain like they are further north and even down here in Lethbridge. Okay, 21 for a high in Saskatoon. Mix of sun and cloud. Regina seeing a risk of thunderstorm along with a chance of rain there. 18 for a high, 32. It's going to be a hot one in Winnipeg. Get your sunscreen for sure, and also brace for that almost 60k wind there. So it's going to be a warm but windy one in Winnipeg. Okay, 20 degrees is the expected high tomorrow in Toronto, a high of 22 in both Ottawa and Montreal. Clear skies all the way across central Canada as we look to the maritime zone. Not so much. We're seeing a lot of precipitation. Okay, we're looking at a 60% chance of showers in Fredericton, high of 10 degrees. Halifax looking at 14. They could actually see a slight chance of showers there as well, along with the sun peeking out a little bit there. 60% chance of showers also expected in Charlottetown tomorrow, high of 9 degrees. 2 to 4 millimeters of rain expected in St. John's, Newfoundland. Also a 30 to 50k wind expected there as well. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Health Canada's issued a recall notice for some green peppers. The brand in question is Simply Hot brand Thai green peppers. Officials with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency found some possible salmonella contamination. The recall peppers with the label UPC 89424200050 were sold in Alberta and Saskatchewan and may have been distributed to other provinces. The affected product in the 50-gram package were packaged on April 20th of 2023. Officials say fortunately so far, no illnesses have been reported. Health Canada is urging consumers to avoid purchasing the affected products as they may pose serious and sometimes deadly infections, particularly to young children, pregnant women, and seniors. Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation says residential mortgage debt hit just over $2 trillion in January. That's an increase of 6% from January of last year. Despite the debt increase, the Federal Housing Agency says the rate of growth for mortgage debt slowed compared with recent years. That trend is being attributed to inflation, rising interest rates, and cooling housing markets. Experts say all of those trends led to weakened consumer confidence and left fewer homebuyers looking to purchase. The Canadian Union of Postal Workers says it agreed to settle a defamation lawsuit against the Jewish activist group B'nai B'rith Canada. The lawsuit stems from news releases in 2018 by B'nai B'rith saying that Cup W was aligned with a pro-terrorism union. Cup W cooperates with similar groups in other countries, including one that speaks for Palestinian postal workers. The union said it will receive an undisclosed amount of cash from the Jewish group. It added the organization will remove the 2 articles in question from its website and has apologized for any harm the releases may have caused the union and its members. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 153 points on the day to finish at 19,774. The Dow was down 35 points to 32,764. The S&P 500 was up 36 on the day to 4151, and the Nasdaq was up 213 points to 12,698. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 251 to 71.83 US per barrel. Natural gas was down 9 cents to 2.31 US. Gold was up a cent to 1941.42 US an ounce, and silver was down 2 cents to 22.73 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $10.99 per bushel, barley's at $8.82, canola's at $15.74, and corn is at $9.96 per bushel. Live cattle June contract was up $1.20 to $167.30. Feeder cattle May contract was unchanged at $208.98, and lean hogs June contract was down $2.15 to $77.65. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 73.33 US. Recapping one of our top stories, emergency officials say there's been a lot of progress in the fight against wildfires due to the efforts of 2,500 firefighters, rain, and cooler weather. Several evacuated communities have announced re-entry plans this week, while others are preparing residents to return. Close to 7,000 people remain displaced from their homes. Emergency officials say there are currently 65 wildfires still burning in Alberta, with 17 listed as out of control. There are a number of natural treasures across Alberta. Now, coming up, we're chatting with Lindsay Wallace from Alberta Wilderness Association about what some of those treasures are. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to drop us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. The Lethbridge Senior Citizens Organization is looking for volunteers to take part in their Drive Happiness program. This program is to help seniors in our community who are facing extreme loneliness due to lack of accessible transportation. Volunteers drive clients to their medical appointments, pick up groceries, and take them to important life activities. If you're interested in this opportunity and for more information, visit lethseniors.com/volunteer drivers. Lethbridge Legal Guidance is a nonprofit society offering free legal advice to low-income Southern Albertans. It holds clinics on Tuesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. by appointment only. Some of the areas the society assists in include family, criminal, traffic, immigration, EI, and other issues. For more information, call 403-380-6338 or visit their website, lethbridgelegalguidance.ca. And that's today's Bridge City News community calendar.
Well, here in Southern Alberta, we love and enjoy the wilderness around us. We are so blessed to have such a variety. And to talk about these wonderful natural areas, we're joined by Lindsay Wallace and Devin Earle of Alberta Wilderness Association. Lindsay and Devin, welcome. Great to have you on today.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Okay, so first off, give us the history and the purpose of the Alberta Wilderness Association. I'm not sure which one of you wants to take. I believe, Devin, you're the conservation specialist. Lindsay, you're the event specialist. So yeah, whoever wants to talk a little bit about the history and the purpose of the organization.
Yeah, so way back in 1965, there were a group of backcountry enthusiasts who were really concerned about what they saw cumulative effects. So lots of different uses on the landscape. And it was degrading these places that they loved to go out and be in. So they all got together, and a few years later, the Alberta Wilderness Association was formed. It has always been a volunteer board, and they've always worked to sort of bring attention to these beautiful wild spaces and to educate other people about why they're really important and to try and get protection for them. And so, you know, more than half a century later, that's still what we're here trying to do.
Yeah, well, it is a very beautiful province. For anyone who has not been here, definitely you need to come to Alberta. And your organization's website seems to be a treasure trove of old books about Alberta's wild and natural areas. Like you said, it started back in the 60s. So, you know, there seemed to be a lot of documentation about the animals and activities in those areas. So is this still the same focus today, or has the focus changed over the last 50 years?
Yeah, we still have the same focus. You know, our motto is that we're defending wild Alberta through awareness and action. So we want to educate people about sort of the issues that are facing our wild spaces and encourage them to action. And our library is really special and kind of a huge part of that. We have documents in our paper library going back to sort of those beginning times and lots of things through the 70s and 80s, and documents and reports that aren't available anywhere else. And now, sort of as we've moved into a more digital age, we are still keeping a library, but it's much smaller now because it can be digital. But we still have that ability for people who are interested in these things to come in and use both of our libraries to do research.
That's so cool. So, you know, we're talking about past activities. So what are some of the historical events that could mark the work of the Alberta Wilderness Association?
Yeah, so we've been involved in so many different things, and there's a lot of sort of areas of concern that we have throughout the province. Some of our really big wins are back in the 70s. They went to a bunch of landowners and the public and created a report about the Eastern Slopes. And we've heard a lot about the Eastern Slopes recently in terms of coal mining, and AWA was instrumental. They got the government to put in a policy back in the 70s to protect the Eastern Slopes. And so a lot of the protected areas that are there now, that's one of our legacies. And that coal policy that was recently rescinded, that everybody stood up and said, we don't want coal mining in our Eastern Slopes. AWA was also involved way back when that was put in with the government. And some of these special areas in our province, there's the Milk River Natural Area, Kennedy Coulee, Castle Wildland Park, even Kananaskis. AWA has been part of making sure that those places are protected so that generations to come can still enjoy these beautiful natural areas and all of the animals and biodiversity that come with them.
Yeah, so these are some of the areas that your organization has been able to protect. And I'm sure, Devin, you can jump in there as well, being the conservationist, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with what Lindsay is saying. We've had a lot of big wins over the past, and, you know, we have a lot of knowledge within our organization, and just, you know, things that have worked in the past that we can try and use moving forward to try and protect more areas. And it's really great to be part of an organization that has, such a goal to protect these spaces for us and for future Albertans.
Maybe tell us about some of the natural treasures of Alberta.
Yeah, there's so many of them. The Eastern Slopes are one. McClellan Lake is a really special area that maybe Devin, you can talk a little bit about why that place is so special and the work that we're doing up there right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So AWA has a campaign going on right now about McClellan Lake. So McClellan Lake Wetland Complex is a really important source of water in Alberta, and it's actually up in northern Alberta, northeastern Alberta, about 90 kilometers north of Fort McMurray. And so what's going on there is that Suncor's Fort Hills oil sands project is proposing to expand into McClellan Lake area. And we have a big problem with that because the area is so ecologically important. It's important for a lot of migratory birds. It's super important for just carbon sequestration. We are in a climate crisis right now, so that's incredibly important. So AWA actually had a couple of boreal peatlands experts to review the operational plan for the Fort Hills oil sands expansion. And we published a report that sort of shows a bunch of the concerns about this project and why it's unlikely to be sustainable and to protect the unmined portion of the wetland complex. So we've asked the Alberta Energy Regulator to revoke its approval on the project, and that's currently going through AER's reconsideration process.
Okay, so then Devin, let me ask you this. So I understand that there is some care for watersheds. Can you share a little bit with us about the ideas of both protecting and enriching some of Alberta's creeks and rivers? I know you're kind of going into there. Yeah.
Sure, yeah. So we know that what happens in a watershed is really important and it affects water, so rivers and creeks and things like that. So if our goal is to really protect our water resource, we need to think carefully about what's happening on the landscape within those watersheds. And there are a few concerns that we have, particularly in the eastern slopes, which form headwaters for a lot of our major rivers. Some of those concerns are activities like forestry, coal mining, which we've already talked a little bit about, and also some unsustainable recreation. So these are things that we really need to look at when we're thinking about how to, protect and enrich our water resources. We need to think about those activities. So logging really needs to be done in a sustainable manner. It can't be done in huge quantities that just, take the forest off the landscape and reduce the capability of the land to actually retain water and filter that water that ends up in those rivers. Coal mining, as we've already talked about, is, impacts water just so negatively. It can lead to selenium and other pollutants in the water that affects fish, that affects, irrigation, and of course it affects our drinking water. And then also recreation. A lot of Albertans are getting out there to the eastern slopes to enjoy our wild spaces, which is amazing. But that has to be done sustainably. So we need to make sure that the density of trails that we have is within a threshold where it isn't harming water and it isn't harming species at risk and things like that. And so all of these things require really thoughtful land use planning and just making sure that we're being really thoughtful about what we're doing with the landscape and what we want to see on this landscape in the future. So that's kind of how I would say that we try to protect our watersheds.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And also like the headwaters, like you were talking about, I know some will tell us that the water is originating in Cypress Hills and Milk River in Alberta make their way actually both north to Hudson's Bay and also south down the Mississippi to the Gulf of Mexico. I find that so interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. We have headwaters, of course, as I mentioned, in the eastern slopes of the Rockies, and as you mentioned as well, in Cypress Hills, and some of that water, like the South Saskatchewan River, flows through the prairies and provides drinking water to so many people, ultimately ending up in the Hudson Bay there. And as well, you mentioned the Milk River there, which flows back into the United States and provides drinking water for people there. So those are vitally important resources that we definitely need to take care of.
Yeah, I would say long-lasting effects too, and it affects a lot of people as well. And of course, here in Alberta, we have some great public land use zones in our region. So maybe talk a little bit about the camping and useful purposes of these public lands. We are getting into that camping season right now, and the time of year when people are out and about more exploring Alberta.
Yeah, we sure are. And yeah, camping is amazing. I do want to say that the lands, we don't need to camp on them or use them for them to be useful. They're actually really useful just the way they are. They're homes to thousands of different kinds of mammals and plants and bird life. And we know right now biodiversity has been in the news a lot. It's something that our governments around the world are looking at as being really important for the continued survival of our species as well. Because when we have areas with lots of biodiversity, it means that they're healthy landscapes. And so we're very lucky that we get to go and play and that we have so many of these landscapes in our province that are very biodiverse and very intact and functional as native landscapes. And they've been stewarded for generations by our First Nations people. And so we recognize the privilege that we have of being able to go out and recreate and find these spaces for peace and recreation and fun and all those wonderful things.
Oh, absolutely. So what are your ladies, what are some of your favorite ways to explore these areas of Alberta? I know we were talking just before the interview, and Lindsay, you were just in Jasper. Devin, you were just in Kananaskis on the long weekend. I was in Waterton, so it sounds like we were all out there kind of enjoying it. What are some of your favorite places to explore?
Yeah, I really love the prairies. They're a little bit underappreciated. Everybody loves the mountains because they're very obvious, right? The big, impressive mountains. But the prairies are just incredible. Floating down a prairie river like the Milk River or the South Saskatchewan, and you get to that hour, we call it the golden hour, just before sunset. And then the sky lights on fire and the grasses are golden. And you can hear the meadowlarks singing and sometimes the nighthawks booming as they're hawking for insects. And the smell of that warmed sage from all day in the sun is sort of just wafting through the air. And those are some of my personal favorite places.
That's so poetic. That's very poetic.
Yeah. But the mountains are super cool too. And my daughter, she's 7 and she likes climbing to the top of mountains. That's what she likes doing. And she's actually doing a fundraiser for the Alberta Wilderness Association this year. She's going to climb 8 summits in our mountains before she turns 8 in September this year. So we're really excited.
Oh my gosh, that is just fantastic. We'll have to do a special feature on her. That sounds amazing. Devin, what about you? Do you have a top 3 list to share with our viewers of spots to explore this summer?
Oh, wow. I'm not sure if I have a top 3, but I will say I grew up in Calgary and, visiting the mountains as a kid, camping and hiking and things like that. So Kananaskis really does feel like home to me. And I really am at home in big forests. There's just something so special and so peaceful and quiet about being in sort of a mountain forest surrounded by trees. So I would say anywhere where there's trees is where I like to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounds good. Me too. Love the mountains as well.
Yeah, for the viewers out there, the AWA, if people are they don't know where to go, we offer our Adventures for Wilderness program, which is one of our educational programs. And so we take folks out to special areas. We have one coming up at the beginning of June where we're going out to the Milk River Ridge. We have one coming up later in June going to the Wainwright Dunes. Maybe you didn't know there were sand dunes in Alberta, but there are. And yeah, lots of other places exploring fire lookouts. We have a paddling night coming up next week. Just lots of ways. We have a bird watching course, which is this weekend, which is full because there's so many people who are really excited to learn more about all these spaces. And that's one of our sort of primary motivations is to help other people learn what amazing wild places we have here in Alberta and what they can do to help protect them.
Yeah, if our viewers want to know more about the organization, how can they get in touch with you? Is the best way the website?
Yeah, so we've got the Adventures for Wilderness website is where all those hiking and paddling and outdoor events are, and albertawilderness.ca is where they can find all the information, things like McClellan Lake and all the issues that we're working on, some of the information about just all the amazing natural areas in our province. We also are on social media, so look for us at Alberta Wilderness or Adventures for Wild on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter,
right.
And
the usual
if people
suspects.
are interested, they can also become members because our organization relies on membership. The more members we have, the stronger our voice is when we talk to industry, when we talk to government, because we have all these people who are agreeing and are supporting our mission.
Great. It looks like we're about out of time here, but thanks so much for joining me today, ladies. Great to talk to you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. That was Lindsay Wallace, the event specialist, and Devin Earl, the conservation specialist of the Alberta Wilderness Association, and they joined me today from Calgary.
Albertans have been shocked by the forest fire devastation across so many regions of our province. So many homes have been lost and so many people have been evacuated as firefighters are trying to gain the upper hand. It has been very hot and dry in many parts of the province, especially in the central and northern regions. One Drayton Valley business owner who's been a victim of the fires is Steve Holmstrom, and he joins us now from Drayton Valley. Steve, welcome to Bridge City News.
Hey, thanks for having me, Hal.
Steve, what was your first reaction to the fires in and around your area? We can see some of the devastation and some of the burnt out areas right now.
Yeah, it was kind of shocking. I mean, obviously, we were praying our hearts out that nothing would happen on our property. We have 300 acres of beautiful treed area just on the edge of Drayton Valley. And so we had all of our friends praying that the angels would keep the flames off of our property. But that did not take place. The fire went right through both of our quarter sections and just devastated both quarters, the forests. And there's still a few trees here and there, patches, but it's a lot of just totally mowed down areas.
Let's talk about some of the maybe homes that were lost, and hopefully there were no injuries.
No injuries that I've heard of. There's a few homes have been lost. I know I have a really good friend who's just a mile from here. His home was totally destroyed in the fire. And so that was heartbreaking. But my neighbor right next door, praise God, he is no damage to him. And I know the firefighters worked really hard, especially for the houses. They were really trying to protect houses.
Now, there were some miracles that actually took place in and around your area. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, on my property, we started a number of years ago. The Lord spoke to me about this property that I'm standing on right now, and He said to buy it. He said, "I'll meet you there." And so we purchased this land. I'm an evangelist, and so we purchased this land, and we built. I'll show you a little bit. We came out here into the woods, and we made a big area where we could gather people. Who's going to come to Drayton Valley? I don't know, but I put out an invitation. We built a big stage here, and we have a baptismal tank right here. And 300 people came to our first gathering and spent the whole weekend. They come in Trents, RVs, motorhomes. The next gathering, 700 people came. And the last gathering, almost 2,000 people came. It was just outrageous to see the people right here where I'm standing, just thousands of people worshiping Jesus, and we preached off this stage. And just over there is a cabin that I built, and that's where I come and pray and seek the Lord every day. I spent more time than I want to confess building that cabin with friends. And what was the miracle to me was, even though this forest was mowed down, that cabin, all around it, I'll take you over there, that cabin never even got singed. The fire went right close, and then it just stopped. It went around the cabin and then totally burnt everything past it and kept going. Even there's a trailer right here, I'll show you in a second, that was totally destroyed, burnt to a crisp. and yet my cabin didn't even get singed. And I'm talking about a fire that jumped the highway just a quarter of a kilometer from here. It jumped the highway a couple hundred yards, lit up my property, and then mowed through this area. As you can see, everything is black.
Wow.
There's just smoke coming up everywhere.
So we saw the fact that the cabin was saved. We saw that the baptismal tank was saved, the stage. It's pretty incredible considering, look at all the devastation that you incurred.
This little backhoe of mine totally destroyed. This is the trailer we kept our tools in. But this cabin, not even touched. And so to me, it was just the Lord saying, you know what, Steve, I know what you can handle. And this is just a place where I love to meet the Lord. And so I still have a place to pray, to preach, and to baptize. And even our gathering coming up this summer, July 20 to 22nd, we've already have over 1,500 people registered before the fire, registered to come to this gathering out here in the wilderness.
So outside of the trailer and some of the tools, and it looked like a backhoe, what else was damaged with your business here?
Not business. This was all ministry. This was the Lord's, and to be honest, we gave it to him. It was never mine. People are saying, Steve, why, how are you doing? Like worried. And I never owned this. I never felt like I owned this. This property is the Lord's. And so I know he'll do what he does. The devil steals your stuff, you get 7 times back. You just stand in faith, stay in joy, and good stuff comes your way.
So how many other acreages or farms maybe in and around the Drayton Valley region have been impacted by the devastating wildfires? What have you heard so far?
It would be heaps. I don't think the numbers, final numbers have come out yet, but all around Drayton Valley, there's lots. I mean, as far as, it's strange. I mean, our 2 quarters, this is probably one of the largest areas right close to Drayton Valley, but there would be spots and farms and acreages all around. Most people kept their homes. Like I said, there weren't many homes that were destroyed, but a lot of people lost some beautiful trees. But we can plant more trees, and we can build again. What
about livestock? Any livestock impacted around the area?
I haven't heard about that, but I would be certain that that will definitely, because when they said evacuate, they gave us like 30 minutes. You just can't load up 100 cows in 30 minutes.
Now, some of the investigations are ongoing right now. What have you heard as to the cause of some of these wildfires in Drayton Valley?
I haven't heard an exact cause. I know some people, it's all rumors. There's a lot of suspicion that these were started by people who wanted to cause trouble. It's a little suspicious that 4 or 5 fires break out in the same day or two, all in different places, but all near the same place. It is shocking. You got one fire half an hour north of Drayton, another one south of Drayton, another one east of Drayton. It's suspicious, but I don't know as far as what they've come to any conclusions.
Yeah, we don't know if they're arsonists, pyromaniacs out there. We'll have to wait until the investigation is complete. Let's talk about how these wildfires have actually brought the community, and in particular, the church, the Christian community, together in your region.
Well, nobody's even allowed back in town yet. I got a special pass because I own an oil field rental company, and I have to come in here to get some work done. So we'll see how this is going to play out in the days ahead. But certainly I've seen it even with my customers who rent from I own a company called Zinger Rentals, and our customers instantly started reaching out to us saying, Steve, if you have anyone who's evacuating, who needs a place, send them to me. And literally my staff, who had nowhere to go, a number of my staff went and moved in with my customers out on acreages in different places. I'm getting pictures of my mechanics. 6 kids are out there on the farm enjoying the horses for my friend Darren, who rents from me. He's taken care of. And I got another customer, Kevin. He's got a whole bunch of my other staff. And so they've just been pulling together, taking care of each other, loving each other. As far as the Christian community, I think we're going to see that in about a week. If the Lord would let us, get back out here. If the smoke isn't too bad and we can have that gathering May the 20th, I believe you'll see thousands, maybe thousands of believers or just people who care coming out to the altar to pray and to bless the land. But I know this is going to bring people together because that's what tragedy does. Paul talked about that, the fellowship of suffering. And isn't it something how our fellowship through suffering brings such sweetness? People who maybe would have never connected become lifelong friends because they helped each other in a time of need.
So, Steve, we've seen the devastation in Fort McMurray, how it wiped out that city, and they're still rebuilding. You know, so many years later, the May 2016 wildfires, and they're still rebuilding. Let's talk about maybe the connection about what it's going to take for you to rebuild your community in Drayton Valley as well.
Well, fortunately, we didn't burn our homes. You know, that's what their town really suffered, in that the homes were burned. And so, thank God, the flames got real close, right on the edge of town. I think it was licking the Tim Hortons, which would have been devastating for a lot of people. We love our Timmies, but it never got into town. So I think, in comparison, it's not going to be the same way. You know, I think the heartache is for the people around, the acreages and people around, and certainly people who lost animals. But it's always amazing how people pull together. Last time there was a fire a year ago, one of the teachers, their horse died in the fire, and instantly there was a what are those online money fundraiser things called? I can't remember, but it was on Facebook, and instantly someone raised like $5,000 or $7,000 to buy her a new horse.
Wow.
And you'll find that will happen. You know, where there's been loss, people's hearts move, and I believe this will bring more good than we can imagine. I've been saying from the beginning, if you could see how much good and blessing even this tragedy has bought me, you wouldn't be feeling sorry for me, you'd be congratulating me. And the Lord knows I love souls more than I love trees. And my prayer is that this is going to draw people together, that people who maybe weren't open to the things of Christ, they'll be softer, they'll open their hearts, God will meet them, Jesus will do what he always does, heal broken hearts and set captives free.
Yeah, it's amazing how God can turn a tragedy into a triumph. Steve, let's talk about this event called Altar. You're hoping to host it again this year, and let's flesh it out a little bit more, what it's all about.
Yeah, if you wanted to get more information, thealtar.ca, ALTAR is how you spell altar, thealtar.ca. But we have a gathering, and thousands came to this last one, and we just worship the Lord all weekend long. We have great preaching and teaching. We got some great speakers this year, and but we just seek the Lord, and we go for walks, and it's about building relationship. Everything is free. Even last year, my wife fed 7,000 meals. Now, our cookhouse was burned to a crisp, and a few other things. So we're still figuring out what it might look like. But we never charge anything. We just trust the Lord, and he provides. The last gathering, I think, cost $100,000. All we did was put out an offering bucket, and guess what? It all came in. And so people come, and they bring in their tents and their motorhomes and their RVs. Some people, we fill hotels in town. But it's a wonderful time worshiping the Lord. We call it the Away in the Wilderness Gathering. And you can register at thealtar.ca, and all the information is there.
Steve, that's wonderful. Now, when it comes to rebuilding financially and the loss that you've suffered, is your insurance company helping you out? Is the province saying we're going to help you out as well with some funds?
No, not that I know of. There's no insurance to cover, you know, this kind of stuff, the trees, whatever. Maybe my little backhoe, I'm not sure. So yeah, no, there's nothing there, and I'm not sure if there is grants or whatever. But to be honest, I know as hard as it is to believe, like, I don't even worry about it. The Lord spoke to me in 2005, and he said, Steve, if you just do what I tell you to do, you'll never worry about money another day of your life. And I started obeying him in some areas, and I saw the blessing and the favor of the Lord on my life. And we've never worried about money. God's the one who gave us the money to buy all this land. God's prospered us to build these cabins and build these stages. And how are we going to rebuild them? You know what? I'm going to trust in the Lord. He's amazing. I was in a $2 million fundraiser to build a barn, a worship barn, and we had $250,000 raised. Well, now maybe it's a $3 million fundraiser. But you know what? 2 million, 3 million to God is nothing. And so I just keep leaning into him, saying yes to him, trust him. And he always comes through for me. Money shows up, always.
Yeah, God does provide, absolutely. Steve Holmstrom, another Alberta resident impacted by the devastating wildfire just outside of Drayton Valley and in Drayton Valley. Thanks so much for your time today.
God bless you, Hal. Thanks for having me.
God bless you as well. On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. Thanks so much for watching.